Texas Senator Ted Cruz has been one of the loudest voices calling for a complete investigation into where the virus came from. And he joins us now. Senator Cruz, Sandra's with me as well. And there's no indication that the Biden administration plans to push China for more transparency on this as the intelligence community investigates it. We also learned earlier today that back in the spring, the Biden White House closed down a State Department group that was looking into the origins of coronavirus. What do you make of all this?
Well, unfortunately, in the first 4 months, we've seen Joe Biden and the administration consistently soft on China and soft on Russia. With respect to China, the evidence, I think, strongly suggests that this virus escaped from one of the two institutes of virology in Wuhan, China. There are two that were studying not just coronaviruses, they were studying coronaviruses derived from bats. Bats that don't occur naturally within 900 miles of Wuhan where the outbreak occurred. And one of those two institutes, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, is 400 yards away from the wet market where some of the first cases were discovered. Now, when I raised this back in March of last year, I called for an independent investigation. Much of the corporate media derided it. In fact, the Washington Post fact-checked it and said it was objectively false, that it could have possibly escaped from this lab. We now know 3 researchers at that lab got sick with symptoms that certainly are consistent with COVID in the winter of 2019. There needs to be a clear, serious, objective investigation. Joe Biden shut down the investigation that was ongoing at the Department of State. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had a vote in the Senate Commerce Committee on whether to create a commission to study the origins of COVID-19. Unfortunately, every single Democrat voted no because uncovering China's culpability in it apparently is not consistent with their partisan objectives.
Earlier today, the former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who put together this group to look into the origins of COVID, tweeted the following about that group being shut down. President Biden sides with China, WHO, and the liberal media on Wuhan virus, joining the, quote, nothing to see here crowd by shutting down State Department pandemic origin investigation I commenced. This isn't political. America must lead on this. And then we heard at a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing today from Dr. Anthony Fauci that he can't guarantee that the Chinese didn't lie to him after he told them you can't use NIH money to pursue gain-of-function research.
Well, unfortunately, Dr. Fauci funded some of the research that may have been at the heart of this coming out. That was a mistake. And even more so, Dr. Fauci has been part of essentially covering this up. For months, he dismissed as a crackpot theory what I think the preponderance of the evidence suggests. We don't know this for a fact, and the reason we don't know it for a fact is because China has control of those labs. They won't allow investigators in. They won't allow any evidence in. They want to cover it up. The World Health Organization, which Trump pulled out of and Biden put us back into, the World Health Organization has assisted China in the cover-up. And I think the people who died across this country and across the world, their families deserve to know where this virus came from, if it indeed came from a Chinese government lab and was released either intentionally or more likely accidentally. But we ought to investigate to figure it out. And Joe Biden and the Democrats need to stop their cover-up that is benefiting the Chinese communists at the expense of the American people.
Let me go to this idea of what you said just a moment ago, and you also referred to it a little while back, too, about the idea of a crackpot theory. You mocked the Washington Post and their fact checker, Glenn Kessler, calling them clowns after Kessler wrote an article yesterday with the headline, quote, timeline, how the Wuhan lab leak theory suddenly became credible. Many mainstream media outlets dismissed the idea, as you pointed out, that this thing could have ever come from a lab a year ago. Now they are conveniently ignoring their very own mockery as they now report on the increasing credence of this possibility.
Yeah, look, and the facts were there a year ago. The State Department, long before this pandemic began, sent 2 different wires raising concerns about the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and in particular, their poor security standards, that they didn't have good protocols to prevent an accidental leak. And the State Department wires predicted there was a risk of a coronavirus pandemic. This is before COVID-19 started. The State Department was raising those concerns, and yet the Washington Post and much of the corporate media refused to raise those concerns. They dismissed them, and you mentioned Glenn Kessler's fact check. You know what they haven't done? They haven't retracted the fact check a year ago saying that this was a crazy theory with no basis in fact. It has a basis in fact to be investigated. We don't know for sure because we need the investigation, and the corporate media and the Democrats have been doing everything they can to prevent a serious, credible investigation. I'll tell you, John, what we ought to do is take up the bill the Senate Commerce Committee voted down a couple of weeks ago to appoint an independent commission with investigative authority, with credibility, to get to the bottom of what happened. And Senate Democrats need to stop helping China cover up their complicity in COVID-19.
I wouldn't hold your breath for that, but we'll see. And the Washington Post has still got time to fact check their fact check. Senator Ted Cruz, as always, good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know,